Imagine waking up tomorrow, not being able to understand anything written around you. You check your phone, and it makes no sense, looking like symbols on a small screen. You walk outside, but you can't read street signs. How would that change your life? For me, I could never understand what it would be like to have education, a human right, be something that I cannot access, to have to fight for something that should be handed to me without any complaints. I can tell the story of many people who have suffered through this and really had to fight for their education. Have you ever seen those adverts on TV? The ones that tell you to call a certain number to help solve hunger in some underdeveloped country like South Sudan? Usually, they're countries like Chad, Bangladesh, India, or even Indonesia. Countries that have suffered civil war or countries with very low literacy rates. When you think of problems in these countries, you think of child labor, poverty, weaker economies, and many other things. But let me tell you, most of them at least, are related to lack of education. When education is inaccessible, inadequate, or unevenly distributed, it encourages cycles of poverty, inequality, and underdevelopment. Can you really expect a country to thrive if most of its population can't even read or write? A well-educated population is more likely to make informed decisions, demand better health care, challenge inequalities, and contribute to economic growth. Now, these seem like random statistics to you, but let me show you an example. Take Chad, a country, very poor country. In Chad, poverty isn't just about putting money on the table. It's about worrying about whether or not you'll be able to feed your children the next day. It's about making them work exhausting and dangerous jobs just so you can make a little bit more money. It's about worrying about the fact that if one person in your family got sick, you might have to make the choice to either treat them or feed the rest of your family. According to the World Food Program, Chad has one of the highest levels of hunger in the world, and an estimated 42% of the population live in poverty. If this hasn't convinced you that it's related to lack of education, this might. 70% of girls under the age of 18 are married, 29% are married under 15, and 1 in 4 females in Chad were child brides. So that means that if I was alive in Chad, I would probably be receiving offers of marriage at this very moment. After being married at a very young age, girls are also pulled out of school, refusing them from any sort of further education. You might think that, oh, it's just horrible parents doing this to their children. Who would do this, right? But that's not true. Many families do this because they can't afford to feed another child, and in desperate cases, they see it as a matter of survival. Literacy rates in Chad are less than 30%, and this country shows a clear example to the question of what happens to a society when half of its population is denied the basic right to education. The average daily life of a girl my age in Chad would be to have to get up when the sun begins to rise and walk for maybe hours to the nearest well with hundreds of other people just to get water. After that, she might spend her day with her mother cooking her one meal of the day for the rest of her family. Or she might walk to the marketplace to sell things like firewood. What if she was born in a country like Finland, with a literacy rate of 100%? This girl would be sitting in a classroom with a full stomach, a free education, and a chance to follow her dreams, just like I can. Now, after I heard about these facts, I thought about a book I read in the past called The Breadwinner. The Breadwinner is a book about 1990s Afghanistan, when the Taliban took over this young girl's country. Parvana, the main character, a young girl, is forced to cut off her hair, go outside, and be the family's breadwinner after her father is kidnapped. If you don't know what a breadwinner is, it's basically the person that makes money for the family and puts bread or food on the table. So after her father is kidnapped, she has to support her family of 5 by going outside every day, sitting on the side of the street, and reading notes and letters for passerbys who come by, because most people in Afghanistan are illiterate. Although this might seem like, just a story, just a book, and it doesn't even seem that interesting as well, I can tell you this has actually happened very close to home. This is Leah. When I was younger, My mother worked full-time, and she still does, but obviously I was way too young to take care of myself. So my mother employed Leah at 16. Well, my mother wasn't 16, but Leah was 16 at the time. Because when Leah was younger, her parents had to make the difficult decision to choose which of their children to send to high school and finish and get their high school diploma. They had to choose between her brother, her, and her younger brother. In the end, they chose to send her older brother to school, which I think was a bad choice, because in the end, he never contributed financially, and her parents, who are the same age as my mother now, struggled to make ends meet. So because of this, Leah had to move out of her village at 15 alone to work in Jakarta, the capital city, as a maid or nurse. Can you imagine that? Me, in 2 years, moving to a completely new island and having to work? I can't, but she did that. And after working for a year here, she was employed by my mother, and she stayed with us for 8 years. 8 years, from 2012 to 2020. Because of this, I've always thought of her as a sister. I even called her my sister. She's such a wonderful person, and she's always been there. She's always taken care of me, and she's kind of been like my second mother slash sister slash friend slash someone who cleans up after my messes, but also teaches me that I should clean them up myself in the future. But I can also have a little bit of help from her, I guess. So, finishing high school didn't just give her a diploma. It gave her confidence. It gave her something that her father never had: the ability to read, write, and think beyond immediate survival. Her father never learned to read or write, but she went further than he did. Because he never had an education, he may have not seen any opportunities for his children, but because she had one, she went further and she did things. Her daughter now has the opportunity to become probably anything she wants. And because Leah now knows the value of learning, she may push her daughter to aim further, become a doctor, a nurse, not just a nanny, the next biggest surgeon, because that's what she can achieve with the power of education. Now, Leah isn't the only person who has used education as a way to make her get a better future. Malala Yousafzai, Frederick Douglass, and Nelson Mandela. I'm sure you've heard of these people, but I'll tell you a bit more about Malala. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014, and she was the youngest person to ever receive a Nobel Prize at the time. She was 17. When she was 11, she started writing and blogging for BBC Urdu in her home country, Pakistan. And when she was older, at 15, she was shot by the Taliban for speaking about what she believed in: the right for girls to have education. She was shot in the head, and unlike many others, she bravely went on. She survived, and she won this prize at 17 years old. 17. She also wrote her own book, I Am Malala, which is so famous, even I've read it. And she tells the story about her life in detail, about the things that she's done just to get to where she is now. She's also created her own Malala Fund, which is an international organization that advocates for education for girls, which she founded by herself. Reading Malala's book gave me empathy. Reading a headline in the newspaper about the LA wildfires, looking at the news about the recent events in Gaza, or even just reading the latest article about Scarlett Johansson talking about how she's kind of scared of AI, it can make people gain empathy and awareness about the things happening around us. Malala used her words as a voice to spread her belief that girls should have education all around the world, and she has become such a global inspiration for people. That's why I believe that it's like Malala said, one child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world, because that's what she did, and that's what I plan to do in my life. When I'm older, whether I become a doctor, a singer, a teacher, whatever, even the next president, I will try and use my words and my voice in the way that Malala inspired so many people, in the way that Leah has made such a difference in my life. Because I believe that people should understand what they're seeing around them. They should be able to understand what they're putting down on paper, and they should be able to read, write, and have the power to become whoever they want to be. Everything in my life is something that I take for granted, and these people have had to fight for something that I complain about every day. They had to fight to literally go to school while I'm going home, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, you know? But reading these books and researching about all this has made me realize that we really are lucky to be here and not in the hospital after being shot in the head, which is a horrible thing to happen. Thank you so much for listening.